Here's why it's important to understand the Google Passages update. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Here's Why. Eric Enge here, I'm the principal with the Digital Marketing Solutions Business Unit at Proficient. And today, please welcome Mats Tolander. He's our SEO Tools Director here at Proficient. And guess what? You might guess in that role that he helps us with a lot of technical SEO stuff with clients. Say, hey, Mats.
Hello.
You didn't follow instructions very well. I said, hey, not, but that's okay. We'll let that go. So, Mats, on Thursday, October 14th, a little over a week ago, Google announced a new aspect of Google search that the company refers to as passages. And by passages, they mean a portion of the main content of a web page. And what they said is that as of sometime this year, they can start ranking pages for a query based on a specific passage within the page. This will allow Google to better serve what the company calls specific queries. Now, Mats, what does this mean?
Yeah, so I guess until what we can call the passages update, Google would rank a page for a query based on essentially the entirety of the page, or certainly the main content of the page, which really could result in pages that contain passages or snippets that are very highly relevant to the query. Those pages might not make it into sort of the top 10 because the overall content of the page would sort of dilute the relevance of the relevant passage. But now, yeah, so with this update now, what happens is that Google says they can rank pages based on a specific passage on the page, and that way they can improve the search results for 7% of queries. Now, there are probably different ways to get to that 7% number, but let's just assume that it is a net 7% improvement, and that sounds pretty remarkable.
I agree, and I think one way to think about the difference between pre and post passages update is basically it looks at how featured snippets are selected. So before passages, the algorithms would rank 10 pages that best match the query, taking into consideration quality signals and perhaps other factors. And from those 10 pages, the featured snippet algo might choose a snippet that as directly as possible responds to that query. And I like to think of featured snippets as query relevance liberated from really all other considerations, which is possible because it's selected from 10 pages that have already really passed the basic quality hurdles.
Yeah, and sort of with the ability to rank pages based on the passages rather than the entire page, Google can get sort of a better set of pages with which to choose from which to choose the featured snippet.
Got it. And even regular snippets will probably benefit from the update too, right? Since the algorithm will be able to select pages that have passages that match a query better than the case is today. So instead of using a page meta description for the snippet, the algo will likely extract a snippet from the passage. That in itself isn't likely to be much different from before the update, but the pages on the first page of the SERP will contain passages that better match the query, hence likely containing better snippets. So really, the announcement of this passages update, which, by the way, is not Google's official name for the update, caused quite a bit of confusion, though.
Yeah, it certainly did. Because in the On Search 2020 video, the narrator, Kathy Edwards, who is a vice president of engineering at Google, she pretty emphatically referred to the passages change as a change in indexing. And in a companion blog post that Google published the same day, they referred to it as a change in both indexing and ranking. But then that has been clarified multiple times as this being an indexing change a ranking change rather, and not an indexing change. So that was quite a bit of confusion.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I saw some confusion too. I mean, I read a Search Engine Land post, which generally speaking provides awesome coverage, where within the same post, it emphatically said that it wasn't an indexing change. Yet Google had quotes in there talking about it like an indexing change. And it was like, okay, I don't even know where to go with that. But one can speculate that passages isn't about indexing per se, but perhaps touches the index in maybe in terms of annotations. And to completely run wild with the speculation for a moment, maybe the annotations are vectors that Google uses to match vectorized queries to maintain fast scoring and retrieval.
Yeah, it could be maybe be something like that that sort of drives this, what seems to be some internal confusion at Google about whether it was indexing or ranking. Now, of course, it may seem trivial altogether whether the passages update is in fact a change in indexing or ranking, but I don't think it is. Now, for one thing, let's think back to the August 10th meltdown in the search result that you may recall. And certainly I thought of that as a ranking problem that for some reason had popped up, but Google said that strongly that it was in fact an indexing problem that caused the whole situation. Now, more practically as it relates to passages, I think if it had been an indexing change, that would have raised a number of questions that would have been rather interesting. So, for example, how many passages could there be for a page? Could passages be overlapping? Could a passage be fully enveloping of another passage, etc.? So I think that was a lot of questions that sort of popped up if this had been, in fact, an indexing change. Now,
right. So some questions remain, though, and the most interesting one is perhaps how far topically a page can deviate from a query and still contain a passage that results in a page one ranking. So you have that, oddball, very specific passage that really addresses a query, but the rest of the page arguably might even be irrelevant to it. And I expect that there'll be some experiments along those lines, as well as observations based on unexpected rankings for, non-experimental pages.
Right. Just kind of what people see out in the wild, I guess. And now the other thing to keep in mind here, though, is that obviously when something new comes out, we like to focus in on or zero in on the change itself. But what is also important to keep in mind is what is not changing. This use of passages is specifically for what Google calls specific queries. So more general, broader queries, they will, as I understand it, continue to rely on algorithmic evaluation of the entire page content. So you certainly don't want to go out and create these potpourri of pages or topics in a hope for, ranking for all sorts of specific queries.
That makes sense. And I guess the question then is, as a practical matter, is it possible to optimize for passages?
Yeah, so who knows? My initial hypothesis really is that just sort of clear, succinct writing where you have sentences that address clearly, not necessarily a specific query, but certainly a specific topic. I believe that is really the way to optimize for something like the passages update. So in a way, it's not dissimilar from the basic optimization that one might undertake in order to get featured snippets in many cases.
Right. So I think that's a good prediction. And for me, this whole update is a reminder of the vastness of the diversity of user needs in virtually every business marketing space. And I think as marketers, we continually underestimate this. But the long tail theory teaches us that the quantity of things that users need or want to know about that falls into what one might call a long tail query is significantly greater than the quantity of queries that come in from a head term perspective. And Google literally implemented an algorithm to go chase these specific snippets of content for where they couldn't find pages that address the topics. So the complexity of search remains as vast as ever, and the passages update is a step forward for Google. But with that, thanks for joining us today, Mats.
Thank you for having me on.
And thank you everyone for watching. And I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Here's Why. If you did, please click on the subscribe button below so you won't have to miss any future episodes of Here's Why.